Well, welcome to lesson number 3. What employers want in a security officer. The 5 key elements. Element number 1. Employers want a sharp appearance. First impressions do make a difference. They want a clean officer with pressed uniform, looking sharp, shiny shoes, cropped hair, no beards or goatees. Guys, no earrings. Sorry, that includes your ears, your nose, your lip, etc. Ladies, probably okay with one set of earrings, but I don't recommend it in the security industry due to potential for injury. They want good hygiene. Example, you don't want greasy hair or dirty fingernails. Try to stay as clean as possible. Real common sense, but when you're looking at a professional uniform, it does command respect. So don't wear your long sleeve thermals under a short sleeve uniform shirt. It just doesn't look right. And don't wear your shiny white tennis shoes with a sharp looking dress uniform. Okay, so a sharp appearance is a very important element. Element number 2, they want an officer that's alert and attentive. Make yourself a presence. Have that command presence. Walk around or drive around based on your assignment and be visible. You're there more than likely to prevent crime from happening. So you have to be visible. And of course, don't stick to a set pattern or a schedule when doing your patrols, whether you're on foot or in a vehicle, because the bad guys start to learn when you go to lunch, when you go to break, when you walk around the building, etc. And they're going to hit exactly when that happens. So keep them guessing. During the day, it's helpful to wear sunglasses. They can shield your eyes. Nobody knows where you're looking. And clients do not want a warm body. They want an alert and attentive security professional. That's what they're paying for. Element number 3 is the ability to communicate. Now, this is so important in your industry as a security professional. The ability to read, write, and speak English is required at 99% of every assignment that you're going to have. Now, I'm not saying foreign language doesn't come into play, because it does, based on the community that you're working in or based on the environment that you're in. A foreign language can be acceptable. However, most of the times you're going to need good communication skills in English, and this can make a huge difference when dealing with difficult people. And we'll get into this in another lesson with in the advanced training when we talk about verbal judo. Your foreign language abilities will be acceptable, but they will not be effective many times. It's difficult to say, how do you say, let me see your hands in Vietnamese? I have no idea. And many times a suspect's not going to understand that either. So good written communication is required as well. Daily activity reports, incident reports are a key skill that employers want from you. Element number 4, we talked about this earlier. You need a strong command presence. Security officers are constantly in the spotlight. You always got to remember there's 100 eyes watching you at all times, and they're going to see what you're doing. They're keeping an eye on you, and it's usually the bad guys doing that too, because they want to know when you're gone so they can do whatever crimes they're going to do without getting caught. But remember, for you, that high command presence is part of your job. You should display confidence at all times. You always want to keep the bad guys guessing your next move. So let them know you're not going to look the other way. Let them know you're not going to bow down. And please take your hands out of your pockets. This is a pet peeve of mine, but you cannot have a command presence with your hands in your pockets. So be alert. Many times the role of a security officer is prevention. And you're not going to prevent much of anything if you look and act like a scared rabbit. Element number 5. This is probably the most important element. Training and experience. You know, security officers are about as good as their training and experience allows them to be. You know, you should always be familiar with common crime statutes and penal codes related to the state that you work in. You should know a majority of those codes mentally by memory so that you know when you have a crime that's been committed and you know you can take action with confidence based on that crime. Your training and knowledge of how to handle a situation is a direct reflection of your value to the client. And if you provide a high value to the client, you can get paid a high wage. Big mistakes and poor decisions can cost a lot of money to rectify. So get the training that you need, and you'll get the experience that you need, and you'll progress in your career as a security professional. Now that concludes this lesson. We'll see you on the next one. Well, welcome to this lesson titled Security Officer Radio Communication, Using the Phonetic Alphabet. Now, I'm not sure if the phonetic alphabet is new to you, but we're going to discover what it's all about here in this lesson. So what is the phonetic alphabet? Well, basically, it's an alphabet scheme or a shortcut language used for many, many years by law enforcement and security professionals. So why is it used, you might ask? Well, the main reason it's used is to avoid confusion when communicating important information over the radio. See, certain letters of the alphabet sound alike to many people, like the letters A and H, or B and V, D and E. And so, as you can hear, some of them sound very similar. So to avoid confusion, a phonetic alphabet scheme is used in routine communications throughout law enforcement. And the way it works is using specific words to represent each letter of the alphabet. For example, use of the phonetic alphabet saves time and eliminates confusion. Let's take a look at what we mean. If you were to see a suspect driving a vehicle with a license plate 4EJB241, the way you would broadcast it over the radio to law enforcement or to maybe another partner who's working with you would be, the suspect was driving a vehicle with a license plate 4 Edward John Baker 241. Now, using the phonetic alphabet in this scenario gives the listener a very easy translation, so there's no confusion between E and B or A and H as we described earlier. So it does save a lot of confusion. This is the actual phonetic alphabet. And if you look at the words used for each letter of the alphabet, it's pretty basic and it's very easy to memorize. Now, I've memorized this alphabet scheme because it's been very helpful in my career, and I recommend that you do the same. And as you can see, A for Adam, B for Baker, C for Charles, D for David, etc., etc. If you start to learn this alphabet scheme, it'll come to you naturally the more you use it. So here's an example of how to communicate to law enforcement, again, using the phonetic alphabet. I just witnessed a guy, give a good description, see the lesson titled, How to Accurately Describe a Suspect. I just witnessed a guy trying to break into a truck in the parking lot of my apartment complex. He went inside apartment B, as in Baker. Now that clearly gives the law enforcement dispatcher a specific letter to tie into the word Baker. So there's no confusion. It wasn't D, it wasn't E. Again, very effective when you're communicating over the radio or over the phone. So again, some recommendations. Study the alphabet scheme provided in this lesson. Memorize the alphabet if possible. This knowledge could definitely expedite police response during the commission of a crime. And refer to the quick reference alphabet card in the resource material that will conveniently fit in your wallet or your pocket. Again, you can find this wallet-sized card in the resource material to the right side of this lesson. So that's the conclusion of this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Well, welcome to this lesson titled Security Officer Radio Communication, Using the Radio 10 Codes. Now, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what the 10 codes are, but we'll dive through that information in this lesson. So similar to the phonetic alphabet, Radio 10 codes were developed in the early years of law enforcement in order to save time transmitting messages over the airwaves. And the codes were devised specifically to take the place of common terms used in the duties of law enforcement and private security officers. Although the codes were formally introduced to be used by law enforcement, the security industry naturally picked those up and adopted them, put them to use. So let's review some of the most common 10 codes used by law enforcement agencies and the private security industry. Here's some common 10 codes. 10-1 stands for poor reception. Your radio traffic is scrambled or hard to understand. So if you're having a hard time hearing a partner or a coworker over the radio, you would say, you're 10-1, please repeat your transmission, or something to that effect. 10-2 stands for good reception. Your radio traffic is clear and easy to understand. So a common practice for many officers who use the radio on a daily basis would be to check the quality of their transmission by stating, can I get a radio check? The 10 code answer would be either your 10-1, which stands for your poor reception, or your 10-2, based on the quality of the reception received by the secondary officer. 10-4. Now this one is probably the most widely known 10 code in America due to its common use by every trucker on the road in the 1970s. Smokey and the Bandit comes to mind for some reason. 10-4, good buddy, just means that everything's good and there's no problem. 10-6 stands for I'm busy, or give me just a second and I'll respond. 10-7 and 10-8 refer to your current activity, indicating you are either in service or out of service. So if somebody calls you to handle a call, you could say, I'll be 10-8 right now, and I'll be back in service in 15 minutes. 10-9 stands for repeat. Many times a message goes out over the radio that's either scrambled or difficult to hear or transmitted at the same time as another officer. So a receiver may simply state 10-9, which is a shortcut for please repeat your transmission. 10-15 usually stands for a suspect in custody for many law enforcement agencies in California, something that I'm familiar with. We use here in Southern California. 10-19 stands for please return to the office or a specific location. For example, you might say, Officer Gold, please 10-19 to the corporate office. 10-20 is another commonly used code that stands for what is your location? So a faster way to ask this question obviously would be, what's your 20? And 10-22 stands for cancel. So if an officer is en route to a specific location and maybe that incident is resolved, you could say, please 10-22. We don't need you. 10-35 stands for confidential. This one is commonly used in a phrase or a sentence such as, can we review this incident? I have some 1035 I need to share with you. So it's basically referring to something that is not privy to everyone. 1097 stands for arrived on scene. And again, a common way to use this code would be, meet me outside the apartment, I'm already 97. In addition to the numbers used in the 10 code, there are some additional shortcut codes that are used to shorten the communication needed over the radio. For example, if you needed an officer to respond to an urgent incident, you may say over the radio, "Please respond code 3," which the receiver would know to mean respond fast. It's an emergency situation. Security professionals can also use abbreviation codes for safety purposes when they don't want a suspect to understand their conversation with other officers or members of law enforcement. So let's review a few of those examples. HBD stands for subject has been drinking. So let's say you're dealing with a suspect that has been drinking and you call law enforcement, the officer responds. Instead of saying this guy's been drinking in front of the suspect, you tell the officer he's HBD. And the suspect usually will not know what that means. UTL, unable to locate. This is commonly used when you're looking for a suspect, maybe behind a building or a vehicle in the area. If you can't find that particular vehicle or person, you would just say they're UTL. GOA, gone on arrival. Again, another shortcut for saying basically, hey, I showed up, I was 97, and they're GOA. PKPA, peace kept, parties advised. This is usually used in the event of an incident like a verbal 415 or a domestic argument where you may tell a partner or law enforcement, everything's code 4, PKPA, and they'll know what that means. 32X, suspect is wanted, possibly armed. Again, a shortcut code for communicating with a partner or law enforcement without tipping off the suspect. And then another commonly used phrase, Adam Henry, just tells your partner or law enforcement that the subject is acting like a jerk. And that's a shortcut for you to communicate that. So as you've seen in this short lesson, the 10 codes are a valuable language used by security professionals, especially when transmitting information over the air. I have provided a great resource in the additional resource section of this lesson. I've included a pocket card size printout of the common 10 codes used today. This is a great resource for you to download, print, and keep in your possession when working in the field. This is what the 10 code pocket card looks like. And as you can see, it covers many of the common 10 codes that we just discussed in this lesson. But it does have some other codes that are not as commonly used. Again, this resource is available to download for you to keep and use as a handy reference. So that'll do it for the conclusion of this lesson. We'll see you in the next lesson.